And welcome, Angelinos! We thank you for tuning in to yet another brilliant episode of the Galaxy Guy podcast, hosted by Chris Maldonado, a show made by loyal Galaxy fans for loyal Galaxy fans who bleed blue, white and gold. So join us as we talk about the ins and outs, as well as the ups and downs of your favourite team, the one and only, the Los Angeles Galaxy.
Hola y bienvenidos, Angelinos. Welcome back, Galaxy fans, to the Galaxy Guy podcast. Como siempre, as always, I'm your host, Chris Maldonado. And today we will be talking about the LA Galaxy's 2-0 victory over the MLS newcomers, Austin FC. And that's right, you heard that right. I will correct myself. 0 goals against, which is officially the very first clean sheet of the season for the LA Galaxy. It was an overall good match, somewhat of a sunny, cloudy afternoon. Overall, good atmosphere at the StubHub Center, Dignity Health Sports Park now. I have to correct myself every time. We'll be covering the lead up to the game. We'll be providing you an in-depth post-game analysis with stat breakdown. And as always, we'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the game. Plus, we do have a new possible signing on the way, which we will be discussing. To talk about all of this, joining us tonight is 2 of my usual co-hosts, the man with the stats, Mr. Casey Cagle, and the voice of reason, Mr. Matt Granger. And also joining us tonight to provide us with some direct insider knowledge straight from the press box, we have the very talented sports reporter and a member of the Spectrum broadcast team covering the LA Galaxy, Miss Nikki Kay. Nikki, thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm so great, and I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to get to know more and more of this Galaxy universe. And I mean, what a start to this season, and to be able to witness kind of this turnaround for this side is really, really exciting. So what a day to be joining you guys on. Like you said, it's always a good Sunday after a Galaxy win on a Saturday.
Absolutely. I know I'm still on cloud 9. Casey, Matt, how are you guys doing?
You know me, another weekend, another sunburn. I never seem to learn my lesson. So I had my buddy's wedding yesterday. I didn't wear sunscreen, and I have the lobster face that you are looking at this evening. So
SPF, my friend.
Galaxy, so let's do it.
Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm good. My heart is full. I am so happy to be back at the stadium. I love tailgating. We go every single game. We tailgate every single game. I can't wait. We have this 40-foot flagpole from China that we can't wait to unveil when it's fully open, and the Galaxy wins just make it that much better. I wore sunscreen. I am my usual tint, but Casey looked great.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you guys are doing great. We have a lot to talk about. But first, Nikki, by the way, I have to mention this. I just have to. Galaxy fans have been accustomed to seeing amazing Spectrum reporters in the past, women like Kelly Tennant and the wonderful Megan Riza in their broadcasts on TV. Both were beloved by the fan base. So naturally, Nikki, coming into this job, you had some very, very big shoes to fill. Quite literally, these women were very big. But I must say that and I know I'm not alone when I say this, so far, you've been doing a phenomenal job. You've been involved. You really haven't been on the ground just yet, but you're in the press box. You're at all the press conferences. You're very involved. So already you're filling those shoes quite well. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you so much. And Megan's a good friend of mine, and just seeing the work she's done and the love she has for this team and the fans, I cannot wait. And I'm really excited that after a year unlike anything we've had, slowly things will hopefully be returning to normal, getting that familiarity with fans in person, instead of, maybe over Zoom. Hey, who knows, maybe we could do a live podcast together one day, but I can't wait to actually be on the sidelines and maybe even be at practices. What a world, right? So thank you. I really take that compliment. It's very, very important and well received over here. So thank you. And it's going to be a great season.
It's looking like it's going to be a very good season for sure. A much different team than we've seen in, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. And speaking of which, this was the LA Galaxy's first clean sheet of the season, like I mentioned earlier. Um, it's significant because this was LA's first clean sheet since November 18 of 2020, which was versus the Vancouver Whitecaps in a 1-0 victory. That's what, 8 months now since the last clean sheet that this Galaxy's had, obviously accounting for some off-season time there, but that's very significant. And it's a very good indication that this team is trending in the right direction. The defense is evolving a little bit. What have you guys noticed from this defense? Is it evolving? Is it getting better? Are they learning certain things?
Well,
I think,
go ahead, Casey.
well, I wouldn't necessarily leave it up to the defense too. I mean, I think we've seen Bond in enough games now to clearly see that he is one of the top goalkeepers in this league, hands down. I mean, if not the top goalkeeper in the league. He's been so confident in his challenges off his line. He picks every ball up. I mean, out of the air. He's great between the sticks, and we haven't really had an impressive goalkeeper like him in like you said, about 5 or 6 years, since the likes of Jaime Pinedo and the like. But the back line is much more disciplined and much more in control. I think the addition of Derek Williams kind of solidified a lot of the sternness at the back, a lot of the tactical composure and staying organized and picking the right moments to go forward. And that's exactly what we really wanted to see from defenders this season. So
Sure. Would you agree with that, Matt?
Yeah, I think Casey hit all the major points. I think the other big difference we're seeing is two big things. I think you're seeing that the difference a coach can make, right, in terms of his organization, in terms of him gearing his tactical approach to the personnel he actually has, not just the personnel that he knows how to coach. I think you're seeing that with Williams, he's having a similar effect that Zimmerman had on Romney. Williams is having on Steres, in that because he's next to a person who's much more experienced, more confident, can make bigger plays. His job becomes easier, and he's able to play within his own bubble. And then on the end, I think the benefit is that we're playing with a young player in Araujo who's probably European bound and is playing like he's going to be European bound. And then Villafania, a person who's experienced enough in MLS that he doesn't overextend himself. He understands the nature and the physicality of the MLS game and knows like not only his limitations, but maybe like the limitations of the league. And that makes him that much smarter. I think this is the first time we're really looking at a backline where we're looking at like possibly like 4 legitimate starters that could all start all around the league. And that's like a phenomenal thing.
We will get into the defense a little bit more coming up. But Nikki, you've been covering this LA Galaxy team all season, bit of preseason. What have you noticed as far as progression with this team so far? Do you see it evolving?
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to what we saw in this recent win was the familiarity, the relationships that are developing with players amongst their lines and amongst their positions. And that was so exemplary with the defense, right? Because a couple of weeks ago, Vanny was talking about the need for proactive communication, right? And how that factors into decision making and what risks are you going to take? Because he was disappointed and not disappointed, but he said, this team needs to get better with determining what risks are worthy of, pursuing when you're defending the ball. And I think that comes with communication, and the emergence of Derek Williams as a leader on this back line has become, like you said, not just important for kind of the direction of the defense in general, but the impact it's had on Steres as well. And I also think the confidence of Julian, we've seen really notch up a couple of levels over the past 2 games. And Coach Vanny was even talking about like this staff has really just been focusing with Julian on his defensive principles recently. And he's talked about his confidence. And like you said, all those pieces coming together and being kind of united and familiar with one another is really key in what we saw, a clean sheet, a shutout. So and you can see that all over the field, midfield and the attack, the relationships and the familiarity is really blossoming.
And that's one thing, Nikki, that I have noticed, like you mentioned, Derek has become kind of like that leader in that back line. And I mean, aside from the fact that he's been playing really great soccer back there, he's been directing the back line. You can see him shouting orders at guys and telling them where to stand and, telling them where to move, who to cover. So that's something that has really stuck out to me. I'm getting some Jella Van Dam vibes from Derek right now. He's one of our most beloved center backs from a couple years back. So I don't know. I'm starting to get some of those vibes. But speaking about that back line, let's talk about the starting lineup. Okay, so obviously we had Bond at goal. Julian at right back, Steris and Derek Williams at center back, Jorge Villafaña, which by the way has been a phenomenal pickup this season, super confident with the ball. In the midfield, we had Carlos Harvey, which, I guess we're still trying to fill in for Victor Vasquez. He's still not match fit yet. He was on the bench, but Vanny said during our last press conference that Victor's inclusion would be kind of a game day decision, which I guess he just wasn't quite ready. Also making the start was Efren Alvarez on the left wing, which was very interesting. His first start of the season, if I'm not mistaken. You also had Jonathan rounding out that midfield. And of course, you had Chicharito up top. No Zubac this time around, which was a bit of a different lineup there than we've seen Greg Vanny be successful with. But hey, it worked out. Anything interesting that stuck out to you guys from that starting 11?
I think for me, I was really excited to see Carlos Harvey check in. I thought that he adds a lot more aggressive physicality to the midfield, and I thought that had been kind of lacking with Saldana. Saldana's a good passer, great technique, very, very smart, but he doesn't drop his shoulder into people. He doesn't have that physicality. He doesn't go head on with people and then make them think twice about it. And I thought we saw that in the LAFC game where they kind of just passed around him. So I was really excited to see Harvey, and then as always, I'm excited to see Efra. Him be put into a starting role. I think there's been a lot of questions about whether he's going to stay with the Galaxy or not, and I was really excited to see him featured.
He played a very good game. And he's looking a lot leaner. I don't know if I saw him up close for the first time this season, and he's definitely been cutting back on the hot Cheetos.
Yeah, and I think I was like Matt. I was very happy to see Araujo and Efrain on the right side, because that having youth start in those positions in a game like this shows confidence from the coach. So it shows that those players are confident enough to take on that role. And we'll get to it soon. I think the synergy between the flanks and a lot of these players on the left and right sides was an exceptional note from this game yesterday. So
yeah. So let's do it. How about we dive straight into it? We talk about a section of the show called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We talk about the good first. Naturally, we start with the good, right? We'll start with Nikki. Nikki, what were some good things that you saw out there from this LA Galaxy team on Saturday?
Yeah, well, on the whole, I loved. It seemed, and Kobe Jones was even talking about this post game, that this seemed like a win where the Galaxy was able to stamp their style of play on the game and make their opponent play to them, not necessarily trying to catch up or come from behind. And I think we saw that in flashes with the attack. I think we saw a much more versatile attack with players playing high up around Chicharito and making runs around him. And sure, we saw a more dangerous, more pressure, more passes. And I think that's really reflective of guys becoming familiar with one another. Individually, I think Samuel Grandsir is really finally, showing signs of being connected with other guys. He had some great chemistry with Julian and Sebastian. And like you said, the young talent out there keeping up. Obviously, it's frustrating not to have a piece like Victor Vasquez be able to take the field when the team's trying to develop and establish its identity. But on the whole, just I think we saw more of the Galaxy's identity start to form as a foundation in this match.
Sure. I can agree with that. It's definitely trending in the right direction. Anything else that you guys saw, Matt, Casey, that you thought was good about this game?
Sure.
Obviously, besides the win.
Sure. I guess the good would be the youth of the Galaxy. As you know, Chris, like the last couple of games, I've been very hard on Araujo. In his first 2 games, he didn't play very well. I've been hard on Saldana, Efra. I think in this game, you have to highlight the youth. You know, Araujo is just like a level above everybody. At one point, Dominguez decided he was going to go heads up with him, drop a shoulder on him twice, and Araujo just like ate him up, and then just broke his spirit.
That was something amazing to see.
Yeah. So Danya came in as a sub and was much better as a sub than he was as a starter. I think when he started, he kind of deferred to Jonah, but when he had to come in as a sub and he had to progress the ball in out of pressure, you started seeing him pass forward, and you start seeing what Victor Vasquez is talking about regarding like his intelligence like for the game. And then in terms of like Carlos Harvey, for example, man, did he like just bully that midfield? He just like ate everybody up. But not only with his physicality, I think you're seeing a certain level of class develop with Carlos Harvey, where he was in tight spaces. He was able to turn on people. He was able to pass when put under pressure. And in my opinion, like he just completely outplayed João dos Santos in what would have been like a like for like type of position. I was really sad to see him leave at halftime. And then finally, like Efrain Alvarez. I was happy to see him feature, but I was really worried I was gonna have to come on here and have to apologize for him again. But this game, he came out, and this guy was putting on through balls that like we haven't seen in the Galaxy in years. Most of the offensive action that came in the first half was coming as a direction of Efrain Alvarez. He never really overextended himself. You saw him track back, and I think now we're starting to see like the kind of talent that people probably see in practice and scouts probably see when they watch him and when people talk about him. At one point, I told my wife, I'm like, Jesus, like, is it just me or is Efrain Alvarez playing like Tony Cruz out there? And then my wife told me, like, no, that's like one too many 805s. Give me back that beer. But nonetheless, he looks really, really good. I'm very excited. And you know what? I mean, I think just the direction this team is going with the G2 program, with Perez in the wings, with Augie Williams, Cuevas, and other people coming through the G2 program, along with the French players we're bringing in, the future looks really bright. And
it's a young team. It's a young team.
Absolutely.
And it goes with Greg Vanney's plan. He said it. I'm looking for players that are going to be part of this team for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah. And I think we're finally starting to see a coach that's married with the philosophy that Dennis DeClose has. Because Dennis DeClose is known for like developing youth and having that great farm program. And I think we're now seeing a coach that's willing to give it a chance. There have been so many years where the Galaxy has just burnt talent, up and coming talent, because they're always in such crisis. They can never give these guys time and like minutes on the field. So I'm really happy to see that the G2 program, the development, the young players, they turned it around today. That's my love for the game.
That's a really good take. Casey, do you want to add anything that you saw that was good on this night?
Yeah, I've got a few good points. I mean, like I was talking about earlier, the flanks are looking extremely sound. You know, Araujo and Alvarez on the right. Araujo makes charging runs forward. You know, Alvarez has such good distribution through his crosses and pivot passes. So I think that's going to be a really exciting combo to watch as the season progresses. And then Villafania and Grandsir on the left. You know, Villafania has, you know, a commanding presence closing down attacks and moves forward well. Grandsir has just an incredible IQ. He's, you know, creates a lot of chances for himself and for others. And, you know, unfortunately he didn't get on the score sheet of the assist sheet tonight, but he really proved his worth today. And legit. He was man of the he was all over the place. I mean, he proved his worth tonight as well. He was involved in most of the opportunities and build-ups. He had 2 shots on goal, 85% passing accuracy in the final third, which is pretty insane. And that, I mean, that's man of the match caliber performance for me. So, you know, tip of the hat to him. We loved a boy.
I can agree with that.
Like you guys were talking about. I mean, this looked like a confident, composed, and unified team. You know, we've seen what kind of magic that Greg Vanney can do, like he did at Toronto FC, and I think, you know, he's poised to do it again. And I'm really excited to see you know, how the season progresses and how we line up against some other big teams.
For me personally, I couldn't agree with everything you guys said. Nikki, you're spot on. Matt, same. I don't quite agree with the Samuel Grandsir. I'll talk about that in the section below this one. But for me, to add on top of everything you guys said, the defense has been getting progressively better. That was my my best take of the night, the best thing I saw out there. Julian had some rough games early on in the season. His first couple games were rough, and we talked about this on this show. It just seemed like he was way too much in his own head. He was focused on something else. It might have been the failure of the national team. Who knows? But after that LAFC win, Julian has been on a different level, like you guys said, certainly above most MLS defenders. At just 19 years old, he's already he's going body to body against grown men, and he's knocking them on their feet. It's amazing to see it. I had an interview with him this past week. He was on my show, and he said it. He said, "I'm 100% focused on this season." He owned up to it. I had a rough start to the season, and I just want to stay focused. I want to win this cup. So it's evident. He's showing it. He showed it against LAFC. He showed it in this past game. Another guy who was solid, Derek Williams. Despite being rusty, keep in mind he was out of commission for a long time, very serious calf injury, didn't really have a preseason, and yet we've seen Derek be a phenomenal player back there. He's like Nikki was saying, he's a leader in that back line. He's giving orders, he's positioning guys in the right place. Like I said, I'm getting some Gilles Van Damme vibes from this guy. Jorge Villafaña, another guy, has been solid. He's showing that he has chemistry with that back line. He's looking good. He's looking experienced, sharp. Steres has been working well with everyone. His positioning has been better. By the way, as a side note to the back line, both of those goals, both of the Galaxy goals on Saturday they were assisted by the defense. The first goal was Daniel Steres. He gave that pass from the midfield to Sebastian Lletget, scores the first goal. Second goal, obviously, was that great cross to Chicharito by Julian Araujo. So, I mean, they're not only defending well now, but they're providing assists. It's insane. But unless we have anything else to talk about that was good, naturally, we have to talk about the bad stuff, right? And I'll start with you again, Nikki. Ladies first. We have to talk about the bad stuff. What did you see on Saturday that just made you say, wow, that was bad?
Oh, I don't know if I can even go there yet, but if I have to choose one thing, going into halftime with a 1-0 lead, it felt like it could have easily been 3-0. So just maybe punching home those chances that the attack worked hard to create. Maybe Chicharito capitalizing on that penalty kick, but all in all, the fact that there were chances and the Galaxy did seem to be controlling the flow, especially on their offensive end of the field, of the pitch rather, in that first half especially. It was good, but you'd like to see the score just a little bit more secure heading into the locker room.
For sure. There was a lot of missed chances for sure. Chicharito's penalty, I'll talk about. Samuel Grandsir had some shots that he just should have put away. Casey, did you see anything in this game that you thought was just bad? Stuck out?
I think you guys touched on, the missed opportunities and that sort of stuff. But I think really the bad that I saw was, Pochettino did cause a lot of trouble for our midfield and defense. He, had a lot of chances created. He created 4 chances for Austin, which I think was the highest rated of the game. So, it's playing against players like that who are, super intuitive in the midfield and can get shots off and create, shots for themselves and also assist goals. So it's just something we, we'll see progress over the course of the season.
Sure. Matt?
I think in terms of the bad, I think Vanny, assuming Harvey wasn't hurt, I think he missed on 2 subs. I think bringing out Harvey at halftime was a bad decision. I think he was having probably the game of his career. If he's not hurt, that's a terrible decision. Nothing against Sasha. Sasha was awesome, and he's probably the sole reason why we iced that game against LAFC. But Sasha's not going to play 45 minutes and wasn't the player to play against that team, especially since Austin isn't very good in tight spaces, and that's where Harvey was kind of eating them up. Mm-hmm. And then the second sub that I don't think was particularly effective was when he took out Seb for Cabral. And the reason why I say that is because I think I think the other Frenchman was a lot more tired at the 60th minute. I was sitting like right next to him, and it was a lot of head down running. Seb probably had more in the tank, and he was having a fairly good game. I think when he took him out and put in Cabral, who in my opinion like clearly just didn't know what he was doing out there, which is fine. He's only been there a week, but he just further destabilized the midfield and created like unnecessarily dodgy moments for probably about 10 to 15 minutes that honestly we could have been punished for, and then it would have been 1-1 because of all the missed chances. So I think those two subs were probably a little mistimed. That would be my bad.
And that was very odd. And I turned to my friend I was at the game with, and I said, listen, Grandsier's coming out, and he's going to bring on Cabral. He's going to, you know, it's just a direct position per position. And he took out Leggett. Nikki, what was your thought when that happened? I mean, when Leggett came out of the game, he was one of the better players out there.
Yes, yeah, he was obviously had a great performance, and I look at it more in terms of getting Kevin assimilated and familiar as soon as this side can, but at the same time to put him in a new system in a 1-0 game it's tight, but he got in there, he got some run. We saw flashes of those lanky long limbs kind of streaking down the field. And I thought, you know, for all the newness that he has been kind of thrust into, yes, it wasn't a clean performance by him on any account, but there's flashes. And, you know, like Galaxy fans were maybe critical of Samuel's performance in the first couple of matches. And now, you know, you hear Coach Vanny talking about, I know, Chris, you might not quite agree, but Coach Vanny thought Sam had an excellent outing. And so if we can get that sort of progress started now for a player like Kevin, it's a good thing. But yeah, Sebastian was feeling himself. So it is a tricky substitution in terms of the timing.
Sure. And I mean, Coach Vanny knows what he's doing. So he maybe the reason is he wants to get as many minutes for Kevin and Grandsir together on the field to kind of start creating that French connection. Dare I say it, the French connection, maybe that chemistry, you know. So maybe that's the reason, right? And they communicate well with each other in their language. Maybe we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. For me personally, something that I saw that was bad in this game, and I have to say it with a disclaimer, because I know I probably will get a lot of angry DMs for this. I like Chicharito. He's a phenomenal player. 7 goals so far this season. MVP candidate, front runner. But I have to say it, and I know it's going to sound very nitpicky here, but Chicharito should not be taking penalty kicks for this LA Galaxy team. And here's why. Before people jump on my case about it, let me bring up his PK's stats. Casey, Matt, we talked about this in a text chat just the other night. Chicharito should never take PKs for this team again. And the reason is Javier Chicharito Hernandez has taken 24 penalty kicks throughout his career. That's club and country. Out of those 24 PKs that he has taken, he has scored 12 and he has missed 12, counting this Saturday's missed and the one he missed last season for the LA Galaxy. That is a 50% PK success conversion rate. That's not good for your primary striker. It's not good at all. In comparison, and I will compare him to our 2 previous designated player strikers, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, okay, during his career had 100 penalties total that he took. Out of those 100, he scored 84 and missed just 16. That is an effective PK taker. You look at guys like Robbie Keane, who was here before Zlatan, took a total of 62 PKs throughout his entire career. Out of all of those, he missed only 9 and scored 53. These are reliable PK takers. You look at Sasha Kleshtin, who's on our team now. He has, I think he's maybe scored 17 and he's missed 5, something like that in his career.
17 and he's missed 7.
And he's missed 7. Okay. And even guys like Victor Vasquez, who he hasn't really taken many PKs in his career, I think he has a better conversion success rate than Chicharito. So I don't know. I may be being nitpicky here with that, but that was my bad of the game, that Chicharito took this goal. It felt a little selfish, like maybe he should have known, hey, I'm not the best. And I don't think it's like a skill thing with him. I think he's just very predictable. I mean, as a soccer player myself, I played striker when I was younger. It's very easy for a good goalkeeper to determine based off of your body language where you're going to shoot a PK. And I think Chicharito's horrible at hiding that. I think he's just very obvious. It's written all over him. I'm going to shoot to the right or I'm going to shoot to the left. So I don't know. That's my take. What do you guys think? Should he be taking PKs for us, or should he be giving the ball to Sasha or Victor when they're available?
Well,
I'm going to help you. Oh, go ahead, Casey.
Well, I mean, yeah, that was kind of my ugly point for this game. Is it definitely exposed our terrible PK taker situation, because, like you said, Chicha's conversion rate isn't the best for any world-class striker. And you look at players like Kleshton and Vasquez, who have a better conversion rate, but let's be honest, they're not going to be starting. They're not going to be playing, full 90s most of the time. So you can't rely on that being your safety pin for who's taking PKs. And I think, this isn't an issue that needs to be immediately addressed, but I think it's not something you want to glance over, if you're in a multi-minute position. And I think, it's something they'll probably work on and address in training, but looking at the statistics, the situation looks pretty dire.
I mean, you could flip a coin and you'd probably decide if he's scoring it or not.
I want to help you dig yourself out of this hole, Chris. So look, I think people get too hung up on like the striker or like the star player having to take PKs, right? Because like that's the man of the moment. But like, in all honesty, like even like a person like Zlatan, right? And Zlatan is like a historically great PK taker. Like once you get to 100, you're in a different echelon of like statistics. And he's a very, very good PK taker. But at AC Milan, he had a string of misses. And, I don't know if you know this, but like Zlatan's not like a modest guy. And even a guy like that managed to cede control of PKs to Frank Kessie, who's their center defensive midfielder, just because he's just better at it, right? Sure. And I think that's something that Chicha's going to have to like come to terms with. And I'm going to, and even like on Chelsea, for example, like they have tons of great scorers. Who takes PKs there? Jorginho, right? Another center defensive midfielder, and not someone that they would say like, oh, this is like put on all their posters per se. Sure. But I'm going to disagree with Case here and say it's an immediate need. Don't let him take another PK. Hey. No, not because he's going to miss, and not because of like it might cost us, but because like when you have problems like this, address it immediately and just move on from it. Well,
I'll tell you what, there are two players who do have 100% success rates because they've only taken one PK in their career. That's Jonah Dos Santos, who scored against Minnesota a couple of years ago for us.
That's right.
Sebastian Lletget, who scored his only PK against La Machina in an early round US Open Cup
That's
game
right.
5 or 6 years ago. So,
Nikki,
there is some positive to be seen.
Nikki, what do you think? Is this a problem that can be just kind of put in the back burner, or is this something that needs to be addressed now?
Well, I think in a decision like this, there is a lot of factors at play, including the ego of certain individuals on the team. And I'm not speaking for anyone or putting anything on them, but I do think the Galaxy are in a fortunate position that Chicharito has found his scoring and attacking rhythm without having the crutch of needing to be the go-to guy for PKs. So if there is a decision that hopefully that comes down the line where Chicharito might, raise his hand and say, hey, I don't need to be taking these. It's because he's feeling himself in other elements, right? He's able to find the back of the net without having that set up for him. So maybe last year, if that was a conversation, it'd be completely different because he was in a completely different space mentally. So he seems like he's very strong emotionally and mentally now, that if he can identify that someone else on the team is better equipped to handle that situation, that he might be able to relinquish that responsibility. If that's, I don't really know how those decisions are made in this clubhouse, but I think the Galaxy are in a good position that Chicharito seems to be in a solid mental space.
Absolutely. And I mean,
If you can read between the lines of what I'm saying there.
absolutely. Yeah. It's like pro athletes are going to be pro athletes, right? Especially
Yeah.
strikers, especially designated strikers, designated play strikers. They're going to want to get the goals no matter what. So basically what you're saying is just kind of put the ego aside a little bit, realize that there are better PK takers on the team. You just got to suck it up and I get it. So, but yeah, I can agree with that. And listen, the last thing you want is like Matt said, you don't address this, you get yourself into a situation where you're playing a playoff game in Portland or Seattle, and you're one goal away from going on to the next round, and it comes down to a PK. Do you give Chicharito the PK, or do you give it to a Victor Vasquez or a Sasha if they're available? That would be the absolute worst way to get knocked out of the playoffs or a championship game by a penalty missed by your star striker. I think
Don't let me relive 2009 all over again, dude.
Boy, we won't go there. We won't go there, but I think that was it. I mean, just about everything else was pretty good. A couple of bad things, I guess, nitpicky if you want to call it, but we talked about the good. We talked about the bad. We have to talk about the ugly. There was a couple ugly things about this game. And I'll start on this one. Listen, the stats once again reflect that the Galaxy was not exactly outplayed, but they were definitely outpossessed by yet another team. This is Austin we're talking about. They're at best a very competent MLS team. Most of the players are MLS caliber. As my friend was saying at the game, most of these guys are MLS rejects. And this is us playing at home, and we're getting outpossessed by a team like Austin, at home. It was 55% to 45%. In fact, the Galaxy has been outpossessed by every single opponent this season, with the exception of the very first game versus Miami, where the Galaxy actually did manage to get 66% of possession. So I don't know, but this LA Galaxy team just can't seem to be able to hold on to the ball for very long. And I think that's despite them grinding out these positive results, I do believe that this is a symptom of a greater issue, which is that the Galaxy's midfield, like we talked previously here, has been mostly underwhelming this season. It's kind of weak, not very strong, kind of leaky. What do you guys think about this, Nikki? Is this a problem that the Galaxy's having that's a symptom of a greater thing? What do you think, Nikki?
Well, I think the symptom is just new faces, new personnel constantly being thrown into the fray, and the lack of familiarity. And I know that's a kind of a cop out when it comes to what the greater root of the cause of the issue is. But I do think each game it should get better. Hopefully, it will get better. But when you are, trying to figure out who you're playing alongside of and their tendencies, it's going to be easier to not have the possession you want and the accuracy you want necessarily. So that's kind of how I like to think of it, as the eternal optimist. It's like, hey, these guys are just getting to know each other, but you do want to see them be able to exert a little bit more control of the game as the season deepens.
Sure. I can't say I would disagree with that. That might be it. It might be just new faces. The midfield really hasn't had the same guys every single game. It's been, either Saldana, Carlos Harvey, Victor Vasquez. It's been, Sasha. It's rotating constantly. So, Matt, Casey, anything to add to that? Why do you guys think we're having issues with possession?
Well, I think, Nikki touched on it. It's just new guys, new system. It's figuring out the synergy. I think there were a lot of bright points when it came to, guys like Leggett connecting with Grandsir and Efrain Alvarez on the wings. And I think it's just going to take time. It's kind of more of a high pressure system, so it's a little bit harder to figure out the rhythm of that for some players, especially coming, from other areas of the world. So I think it's just going to take time. You're going to see some of those nerves shake out after the next few games, I guarantee you.
Sure. Matt?
I think for me, so I'm not as much of a like possession fanboy as I think most people are. I don't like actually think you need so much possession to win a game. I think it's been proven that whether it's Inter or Mourinho's Champions League team, that like you can play like a more pragmatic style that seeks possession and still be very successful. I think Portland has proven that. I think Seattle has proven that twice, beating LAFC. So I'm not as worried about possession per se because we're doing a good job of converting our chances. And when we do have possession, we kind of make it count very well. But I guess
Sure.
In terms of like kind of maybe like tying into your thought a little bit is my ugly that I'll kind of bring in here with the midfield thing is I just don't think Jonah Dos Santos is like a DP anymore. I think he had a sloppy game. There were times where he passed it directly to a defender. And it wasn't like even under pressure. It was like, It was really just like mental issues. I think he's just like not in it. I don't know that he's like, he's confident in his body. I don't know that he's confident in the speed of the game. I know I can see that he's lost a lot of
He's had injury
flexibility
issues as well.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of flexibility and speed moving horizontally. So I think for me that's my ugly, only because seeing Chicharito and what he was like, what we expected him as a DP, what he was last year to what he is now, you're seeing like Jonah regress and like very, very rapidly. I wouldn't be surprised if he loses his job. Just because there's just better sets we can play in the midfield. Like I said, he was just okay, but okay isn't good enough when you're a DP.
Well, hey, listen, I think that Banny and his coaching staff has kind of realized this, and I think that's why they're going after that center defensive midfielder, which we will talk about a little bit further on, because there is a rumor, right, for a center defensive midfielder. But yeah, I can see that. Anything else that you guys thought was ugly about this game, Nikki? Anything that you thought that you saw was ugly in this game?
No, I wouldn't go so far to characterize anything as ugly quite yet. So, but I do agree with all the points you guys have mentioned. There's building blocks and process for sure, but also stumbling along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you guys probably saw the game a little bit differently. I know Vanny said that Samuel played a pretty decent game. Part of me wants to agree with that. But in all honesty, to me, Samuel Grandsir continues to underwhelm. He continues to underwhelm. He had an average night at best, to say the least. He played 71 minutes, which I guess is an improvement over last week. He played 63 total minutes, but he has yet to go a full 90 this season, which worries me a little bit. And it kind of raises some questions because this is a guy that isn't hurt. He's 24 years old. He's had a preseason with the LA Galaxy. He's played 5 games now, 5 MLS games. It's not a fitness thing, and we saw the MLSPA put out statistics, salary figures this week. We saw that Samuel is on 938,000 guaranteed this year. That's almost $1 million. That's not money that you pay to someone that's not going to play 90 minutes, especially at 24. You really, in MLS, you really can't afford to do that. You can't pay someone almost $1 million to not play 90 minutes. So that to me is kind of weird. I don't know. Am I alone in that? That Samuel at 24 hasn't been able to go full 90? Is that a red flag of some sort?
I'll take a stab at it. I think. You know me, Chris. I hold people accountable as a fan, almost like completely tied to like the amount they're paid, right? Because that's the expectation.
Sure.
In any corporation, as I've said before, the amount you're paid is going to be related to how much they're going to expect from you. So yeah, at $1 million, it's a lot.
Sure.
I think me and my wife always argue about Samuel Grandsir, whether he had a good game or not, which goes to show you how divisive he is and like what everyone is looking at and what their expectations are, I suppose.
Sure.
But I think he is trying. He's trying to get involved. He's trying to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
His success in that, I guess, is up for debate. But I think one way or another, we're about to find out within the next month or so, like how exactly League Two matches up to MLS, right?
Sure.
Granted, Grandsir I think was a League One player, but like just barely though, right? So I don't know. We'll have to see whether our investment in the French second league is going to pan out or not. Maybe Samuel ends up becoming the early, canary in the coal mine of what the league actually matches up to MLS. Maybe MLS is actually a lot better than maybe other people thought it was, or maybe Samuel is just a reflection of himself. We'll see, but I understand your concerns for sure.
Sure. Casey?
Yeah, it is a concern that a player would make that much money and not play a full 90. But I think again, it's figuring out the system, and I think he has really good synergy. I think he linked up well with Leggett on a lot of good opportunities and plays, especially around the 18 and in the final third. And I think it's just going to be a little bit more time to see how he adjusts. But I feel confident that he has the IQ to make himself an effective player. I think he's maybe just found himself in a lot of situations where it's right place, wrong time, that sort of thing. But I think he'll have his time to shine and will be eating crow.
I'm also not oblivious to the fact that he did play a better game. He played a much better game. He had great runs. I think his problem might be a little bit that he likes to be flashy. He likes to be flashy. There was a couple plays there where it could have just been a simple pass, and he tried to do something really fancy with the ball and ended up just shooting the ball at a defender or giving the ball away. And I just found myself being super frustrated with that because I was like, come on, Samuel, just pass the ball. It's a simple pass, So maybe it's that. Maybe it's a mentality thing. Maybe we've seen it time and time again. European players come to the league and they think, oh, MLS is beneath me. I'm going to wreck it. I'm going to just tear it up and I'm going to be fancy and flashy. And maybe he just needs to kind of hit that wall and realize, hey, listen, MLS is a serious league. The defenders here are serious. You probably won't be getting away with the flashy stuff every time. So maybe he just needs to tone it down a little bit, play an easier, more simple game. And it's there. I see it. I see the flashes of greatness. He's a great player. I just think that verdict is still kind of out on him, whether or not he will be a success. But we'll see. Now, we covered just about everything, I think, good, bad, and ugly. Let's talk about single players, okay? One single player that you guys saw just had the worst night. Worst night. Nikki, we'll start with you. Who did you think on this LA Galaxy team on Saturday that's just like, okay, listen, he had a really rough night?
Oh, and Matt, I don't mean to go head to head with you on this. I think Carlos was a little bit slow and thrust into a position where the expectations are obviously tremendously high. I mean, you are, the kingpin of the pitch in that midfield position, and he had a lot to work with. And I think it was a lot to ask for. But he, it just showed that Victor Vasquez is really good at what he does. And I do think the future is so bright for Carlos, but maybe just a little bit behind and a lot of expectations for him in this match. But I love that you saw the good, because that makes me excited of what he can, what his potential can be.
I can agree with that about Carlos Harvey. He kind of had an underwhelming night as well. He only went he went an entire half, right? He didn't. Yeah. It was 46 minutes, just about.
Yeah, Sasha started the second yeah.
Absolutely. He, for a central midfielder, he didn't really do much on the defensive end, and he didn't really provide much on the offense either. He had four duels that were lost. He was only successful at 6 of them. 0 clearances. He didn't really have any aerial duels. 6 recoveries, which I guess you could say is good, but he was dispossessed 3 times for a central midfielder. That's probably not the best look. So I can agree with that. Carlos Harvey, to me, didn't really have the best night. It was very, very C average type, a C average performance.
I'm going to echo that sentiment there because, there were a lot of just clumsy fouls from Carlos Harvey. And like you said, there weren't very many marks defensively or offensively on his part. So it was a little stale. But again, I think the future is bright for him. So it'll just be time.
He's definitely a good backup guy.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy to have on the bench. If for whatever reason you need to bring him on, he's serviceable, and the future is bright for him. Matt, I know you're not going to say Carlos Harvey for this, so let's hear it. Who had the worst night, in your opinion? In an
Sorry,
LA
Matt.
Galaxy
Didn't mean to get at your back.
No. It's all good. I guess Jonah, right? Because like that's his job. He's the DP, right? Like this guy gets pumped up by MLS.com writers because they don't watch the Galaxy as like one of the best central midfielders in the entire league. And like, but anyone who's watched him like knows he's not. You know, I mean, you take Carlos Harvey out of there, and it's him, it's Sasha, and it's Seb. That's a good midfield, right? And then what happened like at halftime? Like they just got run over for like 25 minutes. That's where all the best chances came from. You know, I think you need to be just better, right? If you're going to be like the Galaxy DP and you're going to be a CDM, which is super rare in this league, then you need to be like top 2, top 3. And like I would tell you right now, Alex Ring off of Austin, thank God he didn't play because he's playing like one of the best central defensive midfielders in the ring. João Paulo from Seattle, much better than João Dos Santos. Diego Chara, probably better than João Dos Santos is like the way he's playing right now. It's just, I just don't think he's that. I don't think his quality equates to his wage. And I think it's going to continue to show because he's lacking the physicality that we need in the middle. And if he doesn't have it, like we don't have any other physical guys to break things up. We don't have a Perry Kitchen anymore. Well, you know, our disruptor is a G2 player.
You speak of physicality, and the stats reflect that because Jonathan Dos Santos had one single duel the entire night. And that's it, just one single duel the entire night, which is kind of crazy to think about. He had one tackle attempted, which wasn't successful. And he had one single interception, 6 recoveries. In that center defensive midfield position, not the greatest, it's not the greatest look, right? You have to have double, if not triple that. His passing was decent for the night. He had a 91% pass success rate. So I guess on that side, you can say he redeemed himself. But on the defensive side, it was very, I can see it. Not there. So we agree on that. But I think that's the two guys that I thought had the worst nights. I can agree with that. So we talked about the bad. We have to talk about the MVP. Who was the MVP for you guys for this Saturday's match versus Austin? I guess I'll start, right? To me, the MVP this match was Sebastian Lletget. Okay. Now, Sebastian Lletget is now our longest serving Galaxy player. And although he's not a designated player, he is one of the faces of this franchise now. Very good looking face to look at, by the way. And most definitely does play like a DP caliber player. When he's on fire, he's a DP caliber player. For most MLS teams, he would be at least a DP caliber player. This is going to be a big season for him. 28 years old. This is usually when players enter the prime years. So I don't know. I would give it to Sebastian Lletget. Maybe a close second would be Julian Araujo, but I'd like to hear what you guys think. Who is your MVP? Casey, who was your MVP?
Yes, Sebastian Lletget, 100% for me was the MVP. I mean, like I said, he was involved in everything that I saw, every opportunity that was missed and every goal that was scored. And he had 2 shots on goal and 85% pass success rate in the final third. So yeah, we loved a boy. MVP.
88% accurate pass. That's insane.
And a lot of people wrote him off before, but like I explained on an earlier episode, he's what they'd call in Australian rules football a 1%er, where he always gets so involved in different parts of the play that he always can tip the balance 1% in his team's favor, so
sure.
I think he's really going to shine this season and be a major piece of Greg Vanney's plans for this season.
He's definitely looking more comfortable out there on the 1v1s as well. He had 4 dribbles attempted on the night and all 4 of them were successful. So, 6 duels won. He's killing it. and he had that goal. It was phenomenal, to have that composure, to not fall, because it could have easily fallen over that player, but he stuck it through, stayed
That's
strong.
actually Galaxy alum Hector Jimenez.
That's right. Yeah. Huntington
He actually
Park.
went off with an injury because of it.
Yeah,
But
poor guy. We'll hope that he's good. Pray to baby Jesus that he's all right. Nikki, who was your MVP on the night?
I had Seb picked out just like you guys did, and I think that his composure and his leadership really, really shown, and is a big part of why this team is looking more connected, not only in the midfield but in the attack as well. So I thought his presence out there was tremendous for this team, especially to get the scoring started. So like all the Galaxy fans say, we loved a boy. So give him the man of the match.
Absolutely. Matt, who was your MVP for the night?
I'm gonna go with Chicharito. He's got 7 goals in 5 matches. He's the guy that people come to see. I mean, I don't know, if you walking around the stadium, I feel like at least 15 to 20% of people are wearing Mexican jerseys, and he's probably the reason why like we're going to reestablish ourselves as like the only team in Los Angeles for soccer, and we're going to start selling out stadiums again. Because it's not just like that he meets the moment and hits the game winner, is that he's scoring at home so that his own fans get to see that, right?
Sure.
I think the fact that he takes on so much pressure, that everyone's looking towards him, that like not only does he have haters that don't support the Galaxy, but he also has haters that are Galaxy fans. I just really admire how much he's been able to like turn it around and then compel himself to meet the moment every time and score when he needs to score. He's very fully invested. You could see the emotion on him as he collapsed from fatigue against LAFC. Same thing here. He's just all in for the game. And I do like that, you can tell from the way maybe he yelled at Leggett or like other players, Efra in other games, that, he wants the team to be very good. He's not just out for his own brand. He's invested in making people better, and he's not afraid to take the leadership role and like tell people where exactly he needs the ball. So for me, it's Chicha for the game, but also in like the bigger general sense.
Sure. I can agree with that. In fact, this game against Austin was so far the most shots that Chicharito's taken in a single game. He had 6 total shots. 3 of them were off target. 2 of them were on target. Unfortunately, that early shot that he had, I believe it was a cross by Leggett. It should have been a goal. Unfortunately, he hit it just under, a little too under. The ball just took off over the woodwork, but and of course the penalty, which he missed. But he could have easily had a hat trick in this game, in my opinion. Unfortunately, he didn't. But I can agree with that. He was a phenomenal player. I don't think a lot of people would disagree with you that he was the MVP for the match. And 7 goals don't lie, right? 7 goals don't lie. And we projected 16 goals on this show for Javier Chicharito Hernandez. That was based off of math, statistics, averages, right? And so far it looks like he's probably going to smash that 16, that bar that we set of 16. It's looking like he might be scoring 25 plus. We can just cross our fingers and hope that that's true. But as far as this Saturday's game, unless you guys have anything else to add on that, I think that pretty much covers everything about this game. Anything that you noticed, Nikki, from the press box? Anything that stood out to you from this game?
No, I just can't wait for Dignity Health Sports Park to be at full capacity. And I think June 19th might be the date that we're keying in, which just so happens to be a Spectrum Sportsnet broadcast. So I'm really excited for the electricity we're going to feel. And I do think that each game, it might not necessarily always be a pretty win, but we've seen something building and momentum and steps forward being taken by this club. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. And, speaking of that, the Spectrum broadcast team, you're working with, some guys that the fan base may be familiar with, some guy named Kobe Jones and Joe Totino. So far, have you gotten to know them a little bit, work with them? What are those guys
Yeah,
like?
they're wonderful and the most helpful, and from day one, it's been call us if you have any questions. Joe and I wasn't necessarily working the game on Saturday, but I was there, and Joe called me after we spoke, and he loves Coach Vanny and believes in what he's building. So I think Galaxy Nation now has, like fans can buy into what has been sold because it's working. So exciting times ahead.
Absolutely. Two legends for the LA Galaxy. Joe Totino is beyond involved with the fan base. It always amazes me how involved he is. He recently joined our Galaxy family Discord server and did an like hour plus long Q&A with the fans, and it's just like he answered every single question. Phenomenal guy. Kobe Jones.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't need to say anything more about Kobe Jones. Just he's a legend.
he
But
is a legend.
absolutely. So I can only imagine how awesome that's going to be. And we definitely look forward to seeing you guys together as a team in those broadcasts. They're always top notch. So, very quickly before we sign off, we have to talk about the transfer rumor that's floating around out there. I'm going to send this one over to Matt because I know he's a little more knowledgeable on this guy. And it does look, by the way, it does look like this is a done deal. The player in question is 24-year-old center defensive midfielder Ryan Ravelson, who plays for, I've been told, by the way, by a French speaker that it's pronounced Troyes. Um, I guess you'd read it Troyes, but it's Troyes. Okay, from League Two in France. And wait, you guys did hear that right. We've heard this one before. A French player in his early 20s playing in League Two linked with the LA Galaxy. Yes, another one. So keep that in mind. Matt, what can you tell us about this guy?
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't watch League Two. I don't know where to watch League Two. Um, and I'm not a stats guy. Clearly, I just use the eyeball test. But I've watched as many highlights as I possibly could watch on this guy. And what I can tell you is that he's really really good with the ball at his feet. He's a very confident dribbler. He's great in tight spaces. Like even though he's a center defensive midfielder, he could probably play a lot further up the field. He absorbs a lot of pressure well. The French league in general is known as a very fast league, a very fast physical league, not unlike the MLS, but just maybe just more direct, better athletes. But he absorbs the pressure really well. He will invite it and then he'll turn on somebody. He's got a lot of really, really good footwork. If this was football, we'd say he has sweet feet because of his balance is so like exceptional.
Sure.
In terms of his passing, he can really ping a pass very well, and he does it so confidently. I think with the Galaxy in prior years, what you would see, or at least as a fan, is like, and when Zlatan would criticize this too, is like you don't see people like one time it, right? They like touch, pass, or like they touch, settle, look, pass. This guy just has a better field awareness, and he's willing to ping a long pass on a one timer. And then his ball has a lot of pace to it. It's got a lot of accuracy to it. And I think that's something we've been missing. Where like we have that guy in the front now with Victor Vasquez, but I think we had this anticipation that Jonah would be that guy, or maybe it's legit would develop into that guy. But now we're going to have that type of guy who can distribute out of the back, who can clear spaces, who can switch the field quicker. And now that we have our flanks of very, very composed and fast and determined and like offensive now, I'm really excited to see this guy go at it. On top of that, he's a big body. He's like 6 feet. And fast. Good. So that's a big center defensive midfielder. And I think as we were talking on earlier with the physicality that Jonas kind of lost, this guy is not afraid to go head to head with people. He will bang shoulders. He will take you on in the air. Absolutely. And he will go heads up on a tackle. I think he's going to be a phenomenal pairing with Willens. I think they have a very similar mentality. I think they have a very similar aggressiveness to them and a directness to them. He's a solid player.
And with a signing like this, you put him in that defensive midfield position. It frees Jonah to go and be more, I guess you'd call an attacking-minded player, right? Which I think Jonah kind of excels at. So It looks like this is going to be a done deal. The front office has been saying for a while now that they are in the pursuit of a center defensive midfielder, and everything so far indicates that Ryan is that player. If you want to do the social media test, he passes the social media test because he has now followed just about half the LA Galaxy squad on his Instagram. Dennis Teclos follows him on Instagram, so Um, I think this is the guy, and it just checks out. I mean, we saw pictures from last week. LA Galaxy had scouts out there watching League Two games, watching TRA games, and it's not crazy to assume that because the Galaxy's gone out and got young French guys from League Two, so it just lines up with it. And I think this is going to happen. We'll just wait and see for that announcement. Hopefully, Nikki will be one of the first to find out, and she'll tell us about it. So
Yeah.
well, we'll have to ask, but for sure, definitely a much needed signing if this guy comes over. He'll fill a lot of space in that midfield, and his current market value is about 1.5 million. So probably wouldn't be a high costing player for us. Casey, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, I mean, if he's with a salary, or sorry, not a salary, market value like that, I feel like we could easily bring him in on a TAM deal. So it'll
For
be
sure.
interesting to see how the details of that net out too.
We'll try to break that as it comes. We'll get Nate on the case. Nate is one of our co-hosts, Nikki, and he's a French guy, so he's up to date on all the French stuff that goes on. So, we.
Oui.
We. So now that we've talked about Sunday's game, talked about the transfer rumor a little bit, we touched about the good, the bad, the ugly. We do have another game next weekend. That's Saturday, same time, 12:30. That game, of course, will be versus the Portland Timbers up in Portland. That's never an easy game. Although the Portland Timbers have been, they've kind of had a rough start to the season. Portland always steps up their game every time they play the Galaxy. I don't know why. They just hate us for some reason, especially when we play in Portland. It's a different atmosphere. Portland is currently in ninth place in the Western Conference. They've only won 2 games so far against teams that I consider to be relatively easy, like San Jose, not the best team. Houston, another team that's kind of mediocre. They've lost 3 games and tied 0. They've scored only 6 goals and conceded 8. I think this is definitely not the usual Portland that we're used to seeing in MLS. They're definitely hurting. What do you guys think? Is this a winnable game?
Yeah, Portland away are always the two most dreaded, or one of the two most dreaded words on any team's calendar. And, being another Western Conference juggernaut, it's always going to intensify the atmosphere of the game. But like you said, Portland's a legless beast at the moment. They don't have much bite. They aren't looking as strong as they did last year under Gio Savarese. So it'll be an interesting game. But if we can continue performances like against LAFC, where we can come back from being down a goal in an inspired win, then I'm confident that we can get 3 points up in Portland this weekend.
I think so too. I think it's doable. Nikki, what do you think? They're missing. This Portland team has been like Casey said. They've been kind of toothless. Diego he's missed a step or two this season. It seems. Do you think this is a winnable game for the LA Galaxy?
Without a doubt. But what I want to see is another clean sheet from this team. I think we want to see that what the success the defense had in this last game continue to build. I think the Galaxy did a great job against Austin in terms of not letting the emotional high of beating LAFC kind of lull them into a loss. So let's keep it going, keep the momentum going, and maybe continue to see some of those offensive chances be actually converted. But you can only ask for a clean sheet and a shutout to really show that this team is fortifying in the right way.
Absolutely. Matt, score prediction. What's the score prediction for this game?
You know what?
Don't say it.
Portland gives up a lot of possession. They only had 33% possession against San Jose. You're right; they're very toothless, but it is Portland. They foul a lot. It's turf. I think for people who are waiting to see the Galaxy with possession, you're going to get to see it now. And I think that because of that, we're going to have to rely on the midfield to break down the Portland defense and to be a little stronger, I guess. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 0-0 draw, to be perfectly honest. And I think that would actually be reasonably successful given our history up there. But there's also not a team in this league that the Galaxy can't beat. I firmly believe that, and I've said that before. So I wouldn't be surprised for a 0-0 draw, but maybe 1-0. Maybe 1-0 would be optimistic.
I think that's fair. And I would agree with you. Even a 1 point, even if we come back with 1 point, I think that would be a good result for us, given our history in Portland. But we'll probably cover that game a little more in depth midweek. But I think for tonight, we've just about covered everything. Nikki, why don't you go ahead and tell the Galaxy fans where they can find you?
Oh, awesome. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Nikki Kay SN1 for Spectrum News 1, which is also where you can find some of my work. And then on Instagram, I'm Lil Nikki Kay. So just keeping it fun and light over here. I know Megan and Kelly were tall reporters, so maybe I'll play on being shorter.
No, listen, absolutely. We look forward to seeing you live.
Thank you so much.
During those broadcasts. So if there's nothing else, guys, I think that about does it. We're going to wrap it up. For myself, Chris Maldonado, the Galaxy Guy podcast, my co-hosts, Mr. Matt Granger, Casey Cagle, our wonderful guest tonight, Miss Nikki Kay, Spectrum Sportsnet. Want to say, guys, have a wonderful week, and we hope to see the LA Galaxy this weekend. 3 points, or at the very least 1. We'd be happy with that. So have yourselves a good night. Bye-bye. All right.